Hi, in this video, we'll do chapter 5, the first part of chapter 5, morphology of flowering plants. So to start off with this topic, first what we'll do is, we will divide the heading. We'll divide the heading into two. We have morphology and we have flowering plants. Let's break this into two and we'll define them separately. Okay, so what is morphology? Morphology means study of external features. External features in the sense, all the features that we can see, they're called morphology. Flowering plants. Now, when you study classification in plants, you will study that the last classification of plants is those which are flowering plants, which means angiosperms, right? So this is angiosperms, and we'll be studying the external features that we see in angiosperms. What are the external features that we see in angiosperms? Now you will say root, stem, leaf, then you will say flowers, fruits, and seeds. So now we can classify the different parts in a plant into two main categories. One is you have vegetative, and then you have the other one, reproductive. Okay, so here you have root, then stem, and then you have leaves. All these parts in a plant are involved in making the food and helping the plant to grow and survive. So the root is involved in absorption of water and minerals. The stem is responsible for transport of the food and water around the plant. And then we have leaves which take in sunlight, photosynthesize and make food for the entire plant. So these three, that is why they are known as vegetative parts of a plant. Coming to reproductive parts of a plant, reproductive parts are those which help in reproduction, right? So now we have flowers, we have fruits, and we have seeds, which are part of the reproductive part of the plant. So in this video, we will mostly focus on the vegetative portion of a plant. Okay, so the first vegetative portion that we will start off with is root. So when we start with root, first thing we'll talk about germination of a seed. Imagine that this is a dicot seed, okay? And when it germinates, there are two different portions that arise, okay? So this portion is called the plumule, and this portion is called the radicle. Plumule is the portion that grows upwards when a seed germinates, and it results in the formation of shoot system. Everything that is above the land is called shoot system, and radicle gives rise to root system. So we'll talk about this root system that arises from the radicle when a seed germinates. So when you think of roots in plants, you can classify them into different types. So we'll look at types of root systems. Okay, so the first type is, imagine if this is the shoot system and this is the ground level. Okay, so imagine if this root system comprises of one main root from which smaller branches arise. Okay, and with these branches again further branch and looks like a network. So these will be known as primary, secondary, tertiary, and so on, depending on the number of branching that occurs. This kind of a root system is called taproot system. So in a taproot system, you have a main root and you have primary, secondary, tertiary roots that branch from the main root system. This is a true root because it comes from the radicle or the base of the plant. Simply, if you want to say it in common words, it comes from the base of the plant. So it is a true root. Okay. So let's look at some examples. First example that you can consider is carrot. Then you have radish. And you can go on listing more examples so you will learn better. Okay. So leave some space, find out more examples for each type that we learn in this video. The second type is the kind of root that arise from a single point of the plant and they arise in thread-like structures. So these thread-like structures will arise from one point and this type of root system is called fibrous root system. In a fibrous root system, you don't have branching, you don't see any of that. You only see this kind of thread structures, which is fibrous. That is why it's called fibrous root system. Now, examples of fibrous root system are monocots. Now, monocots are legumes, that is pulses. Then you have grass. All of that counts as monocots. So, monocotyledon plants have fibrous root system. So, that are two different kinds of roots that we saw. Let's look at one more kind of root, but this root system is not like the others. The others were true root systems because they came from the radicle that we saw, right? But in the third kind, you have roots that arise from aerial portions of the plant. What do I mean by aerial portions? Aerial portions means anything that is above the soil is aerial, that is in the air. So one popular example for these kind of roots is banyan. And the name of this kind of roots is called adventitious. Adventitious roots do not come from the radicle. By that I mean they do not come from the base of the tree or the plant. Okay, so they are not true roots as such, like fibrous root and taproot. So you can always go back and find more examples. So those are the kinds of root systems that we have. Now we'll look into different types of growth zones that we see in a root system. So if I take this to be the tip of the root, okay, the tip of the root will always be protected by a small cap-like structure. Imagine this is a section of the tip of the root, okay, and it is covered by a cap-like structure. So this is called root cap, okay. And why is this protection needed? So in the tips of the roots and in the tips of the shoots, and you see in nodal regions, which we'll learn later, in these regions you have special cells, okay, specialized cells which grow. And when I say grow, I mean they keep on dividing and making the organ bigger, right? So these growing cells, growing and dividing cells, are known as meristematic cells or meristem cells. So these meristematic cells are present in this region. So it is very vital because as this grows, the tip goes on growing like this and the older cells go upwards. Okay. So as it keeps growing, that is how the root itself grows. That is why it is very important to protect this tip over here, which is why we have a root cap. And this area is called area of meristematic activity. I will write M activity. M over here stands for meristematic. Okay. So next what happens? Here the cells have been dividing and growing. Now the cells need to become longer for the root to grow. So since the cells are becoming longer and stronger, these cells are said to be elongated. Can you see? Okay. So this zone is called area of elongation. After this, what happens? So the cells go on growing, but after a point of time, what happens? The cells that have grown will start losing the ability to divide, which is meristematic cells, as they grow, will stop to divide. And when it stops to divide, that is when you have cells that are mature. So these are mature cells. And over here you have meristematic cells. Okay, the difference between them is meristematic cells are always actively dividing, hence they need protection. But over here, the cells have stopped growing. They already know what they have to do. They've already grown. They've already matured. So this zone is called area of maturation. Okay. So in this area of maturation, you need to note some important activity that happens. So what is this important activity? So in the epidermis of this area of maturation, okay, on both sides, okay, there is this epidermis, and this epidermis shows the growth of thin structures, okay, and we call these as root hair. So why did we build up and come all the way to root hair? Root hair is very important because root hair will increase the surface area. If it increases the surface area, there is more absorption of water and nutrients that takes place, right? So root hair is very important. So an important question that can be asked is define root hair. Root hair is the structure that can be seen in the epidermis of the area or zone of maturation in the tip of the root. It helps to increase the surface area in order to absorb more water and nutrients. Okay, so that is all of the keywords that you should have in a definition. It is an important definition that keeps coming in competitive exams. Okay, so make a note of root hair. So we finished the structure of root tip. We finished types of roots. Now we look at some functions of roots. So along with functions, we'll be learning how certain plants are modified according to the function that they are required of. Okay, so we will look at modifications of the root system. First modification is certain plants have modified root system in order to store food. So food storage is the first kind of modification. Let's look at some examples like sweet potato, not potato. Be very careful when you give examples. Sweet potato. Remember, sweet potato is a modification of root. Okay, we're only talking about root now. So sweet potato, carrot, radish, all those are examples for modification in order to store food. Now the next example we will look where roots are modified especially in order to give support for the plant. So generally roots are present in order to hold a solid ground, right? So they anchor on the soil. So that's why you need roots. That is why we need to plant more trees so that when there is a calamity like a flood or something, the roots will hold on to the ground and not let the water to erode the soil. Okay, so that's how trees protect the soil from erosion because they give support to the plant by holding the land. But there are some modifications that we have in roots to give extra support. Okay, so there are two different kinds. We look at those examples with prop roots and stilt roots. Okay, so now in prop root we have already seen support. We just saw adventitious roots, and the example for adventitious roots was banyan. So that is the same example we have here. It is a type of prop root. Okay, banyan. And when we come to stilt root are basically something that arises from the base. Here it arises from anywhere but the base, right? But stilt roots are those roots which arise from the base, but they don't grow downwards, they grow upwards. They grow like this, okay? So, for example, if you look at a sugar cane, imagine this is a sugar cane, the stilt roots grow like this. And this is to provide more support. Okay, so example over here is sugarcane. All right, so we'll see two different modifications. We'll look at one more. Always remember to note down examples so that even if you don't note down the definition, with the example you can make out what type of root it is. So then we have the third kind of modification where roots function for extra support with respect to respiration. So plants also respire, right? So they need to have a certain intake of gases, and sometimes they are modified in such a way that they enable the plant to get more air. So there is more aeration. How do you do that? The same kind of example you can take from mangroves, for example. Here the roots will grow aerially. This is the keyword here. It grows aerially, which means that it grows above land on the shoot system, and it provides extra surface area for respiration. Okay, so that is all we have for root system. The next that we will be talking about is stem. So in stem, as we were talking about plumule and radicle, you remember we were talking about the seed in the beginning of the video. Okay, so we have the plumule and we have the radicle. So this shoot system comes from the plumule, and the entire shoot system comprises of all the parts that you see above soil. The main part that you see is stem. So the origin of stem is the plumule. Okay. Now let's start looking at the stem for its structure. Imagine this were a stem. The stem can be jointed like this, and each of the joint here is called a node. Okay, this is a node, this is a node, this is a node, and so on. Then the distance between two nodes is called the internode. Okay, so you have the node and the internode. So let's look at some functions of the stem. The stem is responsible for the plant to be standing, in the sense that the plant is supported by the stem. So the first function that you would write for stem is support. The next thing that you could write, and the most important thing, is that stem possess vasculature, vascular bundles, that is xylem and phloem. So xylem and phloem are very important for transportation of food and water throughout the length of the plant. No matter what the length is, the stem is responsible for transportation, right? So the second function would be, second and main function actually for a stem is transportation. So with these functions itself, you can see that there are lots of modifications of stem. So we'll look at some modifications. Like we did in roots, we'll be looking at different modifications of stem, and we will see what function it performs. Okay. Modifications in stem. So the first modification that we will study, like we did in roots, is for storage of food. Here the stem is modified to thicken and store all of the food matter that is produced by the leaves. Okay, for example, here you have to mention potato. Over there it was sweet potato, here it is potato. Okay, is an important example for storage of food. Another example that you can take is ginger. Okay, ginger is a modification of stem. It is an underground stem. Okay, so that is about the first type of modification, the storage of food. The second one is for support, like we had in roots. But here the support is in the form of tendrils. The stem takes a thread-like appearance, okay, and this is very important in plants that climb. So most climbers will have tendrils as their stem. For example, cucumber. Cucumber is an important example, and then you have watermelon and other creepers and climbers that you can remember. They'll all be examples for tendrils. Okay, so last, and this one is slightly important, the third kind of modification of stem is the modification that you see in bougainvillea. In bougainvillea, okay, fine. In bougainvillea, you see that the plant has thorns, okay, and these thorns are in function defensive. It's protective for the plant and it defends itself from other animals. So this is one of the competitive questions. They might ask you thorns as a modification of stem. Then you have to write bougainvillea. Note that it has two L's. Don't be like me. Okay, so that is all the modifications. There are a few more modifications in STEM, but they can be given using examples. There are three of them. One is Opuntia. In Opuntia, the stem is flattened and they make food, meaning they photosynthesize. In Opuntia, it's flat and they make food. You can remember it looks like a cactus. Okay. Then Euphorbia is another example where the stem is modified to be thick and fleshy. Thick and fleshy stem in Euphorbia, flat and photosynthetic stem in Opuntia, and the last one we will look at Terror of Bengal. Take this as a small example and find out why water hyacinth is known as the Terror of Bengal. So this is the final example of types of modification in stem. So find out why water hyacinth is called the Terror of Bengal. Okay, we'll move on to the last vegetative part that we have, which is the leaf. Leaf are among the first thing that you notice on a plant, right? It is photosynthetic in function. It is where food is made. It is very, very important in a plant, and it is important for us to study the leaves. So, where does the leaf originate from? This is the first question. So, the leaf originates from a bud. which is called axillary bud. So we'll look at what is an axillary bud and where is it present. So we have a stem, we have nodes. Certain meristematic cells, while growing, while the stem is growing, stay back at the nodes. Okay, so the cells that stay back at the nodes will grow as a bud. This bud is called as the axillary bud. The axillary bud is what develops into branches or leaves or flowers, fruits, everything. Okay, an axillary bud has the special growing cells, which is meristematic cells. So, axillary bud is where the leaf originates from. So we finished that part of the story. Let's move on to the structure of a leaf. Imagine this is my stem. You've got nodes. There was an axillary bud over here which grew out to be a leaf. So I will draw a very simple leaf and we'll look at different parts in this leaf. Okay, so starting with the stalk that supports the leaf and attaches it to the stem. This is called the petiole. Don't get confused later. There will be peduncle, there will be pedicel. Don't get confused. Petiole is the stalk of a leaf which connects it to the stem. Okay, next, move on. This is the central line in the leaf. That is called the midrib. Okay, this midrib will show the presence of branches, which we call as veins, and these veins will show further branching, and those further branches are called veinlets. Okay, now the border of the leaf that you see over here is called the leaf blade. It is also called as the lamina. Don't get confused. The broad portion, that is the border, imagine this is the leaf, this area is called lamina or leaf blade. This is where major photosynthetic activity takes place, in the lamina or the leaf blade. Veins, veinlets, midribs are all connected with the petiole and then the stem. So this entire network is what is important for the transportation of water, nutrients to the leaves, and then food to the plant. Okay, so these are the different parts in a leaf. In some cases, at this bud, you will see small projections. Okay, they're leaf-like structures. These structures are called stipules. A plant might have stipules or it might not have stipules. Okay, so if it has stipules, then it is called a stipulate plant. If it doesn't have stipules, it is called an exstipulate plant. We're studying all these features so that you can identify different plants using these characters and you can classify them. Okay, that is why you need to know the different parts and different types of these parts. So you've got exstipulate and stipulate based on the presence or the absence of stipules, which are tiny leaf-like structures present at the petiole base. In certain cases, what happens, these structures will be slightly larger, of course smaller than the leaf, and they will be photosynthetic. Okay, if they are photosynthetic, then those are called pulvinous leaves. Okay, I'll just write this here. Pulvinous. Pulvinous is when the structures at the base of the petiole are photosynthetic. They are called pulvinous leaves. Okay, and for example, for pulvinous, you have most legumes. You remember what legumes are? Legumes are pulses, which are monocot. We were talking about monocot when we were talking about roots. Remember? We were talking about fibrous roots. Okay, so this is the structure of the leaf, and these are the labelings and different parts. We'll look at this one last time before I move on to the next topic. So we have stem, we have a node of the stem from which a leaf originates. That point is called an axillary bud. Okay, then at the axillary bud you have a stalk that supports the leaf. The stalk is called petiole. Then the leaf has a midrib, which is the central line that runs through the leaf. The midrib branches out into veins, and the veins further branch out into veinlets. The broad part of the leaf or the border is called leaf lamina or leaf blade. Okay, this is where major photosynthetic activity occurs. The veins, midrib are responsible for transportation. Okay, then you have small leaf-like structures at the base of the petiole, which is called stipules. Based on whether stipules are present or absent, the plant can be a stipulate or an exstipulate plant. In case these structures are photosynthetic, then they are called as pulvinous. An example for pulvinous is legumes. Okay, so that is the structure of the leaf. Now we'll move on to the next part of the leaves, where we are talking about the arrangement of veins and veinlets. Arrangement of veins and veinlet again helps in identification and classification of plants. So arrangement of veins is called venation, and we have two types of venation. Imagine this is the midrib, and you have the leaf. Okay, and around the midrib you have the veins which branch from the midrib, and you have the veinlets. These veinlets keep branching out to make it look like a network. So this network of veins, this arrangement is called reticulate venation. Reticulate venation is a network arrangement of veins, and it can be seen in all dicot plants. Okay, now we look at the second kind of veins arrangement in leaves. Imagine this is the midrib, and your veins are in such a way that they are parallel to the midrib, but they are thinner than the midrib. In this case, it is called a parallel venation, and it is seen in monocots. Okay, so we have reticulate venation, which is a network arrangement of veins seen in dicots. Next, we have parallel venation, where you have the veins parallel to the midrib, and it is seen in monocots. Okay, so next, what we will look at is types of leaves. Now, this is actually fun because we will mostly be just drawing, and that is how you will learn to differentiate between types of leaves. Let's look at the broad classification. Broadly speaking, we have two different types of leaves. First type is you have simple leaves and you have compound leaves. Okay, what is the difference between simple and compound? Now imagine my white chalk. Can you differentiate the color? Okay, so the white is your midrib, and the green that I will use is for the lamina. So if this is the midrib and we're talking about simple, okay? If this is the midrib and you have your veins around the midrib, if your lamina is continuous without any break, that is, these kind of leaves are simple leaves. Okay, but there are some kinds of leaves where the lamina is not continuous. In the sense, there is a break of lamina as it surrounds the midrib. I'll tell you what I mean. So if this is the midrib and you have veins like this, in simple, you would have just had a leaf like that and that would have finished. And that's a simple leaf. But in this type, we have lamina which surrounds individually each vein. Since each vein is surrounded individually, there is a break in lamina. This is one whole leaf, okay? And here we don't call this as a midrib, we call this as a rachis. Rachis is the main midrib of this compound leaf. This is the compound leaf, okay? Compound leaves are those type of leaves where the lamina is not continuous. It breaks and separately surrounds each vein. Okay, this individual is called leaflet, and this is called a rachis. You don't call it a midrib. Okay, and this entire thing is a leaf. It's a leaf. It's a single leaf. Okay, now there are subdivisions in this compound leaf. Now we look at subdivisions and types of compound leaves. Okay, so in compound leaves, okay, so I told you that the lamina will break and it will individually surround the veins. So now we will see if this is the main midrib, from a single point you will have leaflets arising. In this case, you will call it palmately compound leaf. Palmately compound means leaflets arising from the same point. Okay? Next, another type of compound leaves is when you have maximum 2 or 3 leaves from each point. These kinds are called as pinnately compound. Now we have two types of leaves. One is simple, one is compound. Simple is without a break in lamina. Compound is breaks in lamina. Palmately compound leaves will have leaflets arising from the same point. Pinnately compound leaves will arise with leaves from different points. Okay, based on this arrangement of leaves around the axis, arrangement of leaves on a branch or around an axis is known as phyllotaxy. Depending on the different arrangements of leaves in plants, we will identify and classify plants. Okay, so in phyllotaxy you have mainly 3 different types. We have alternate, we have opposite, and we have whorl. In alternate phyllotaxy, you will have only one leaf from one point, and they will be in an alternate fashion. In opposite leaves, in opposite phyllotaxy of leaves, you will see that 2 leaves will arise from one point. In whorl phyllotaxy, you will see that one plant will have many leaves arising from the same point. And this is whorl phyllotaxy. Many leaves from the same point is called whorl phyllotaxy. Now we look at one example from each. For alternate, you have China rose as an example for alternate. For opposite, you have Calotropis. Always when you write examples, underline the examples, because sometimes you will write scientific names and you will forget to underline. Okay, so Calotropis is an example for opposite phyllotaxy, and for whorl phyllotaxy you have Alstonia. Alstonia is a type of whorl phyllotaxy. Calotropis is an example for opposite phyllotaxy, and alternate phyllotaxy example China rose. Okay, we'll look at modifications in leaves. Okay, so modifications in leaf systems. Okay, for example, we'll start with three main modifications. One is tendril type of modification. Here, just similar to what we saw in stem. Okay, but if you mix the examples, okay, then it's a problem because the origin of each of this is different. The origin of stem is from the plumule, right? So the tendril modification in stem also is from a plumule itself. But in a tendril, it is a leaf modification. So the origin of this tendril is from its axillary bud. We'll take one example, P. All tendrils are present in order to give support for the plant, mostly climbers. Okay. Next, we have spines. In case of stem, we saw thorns. Here we will see spines, which are reduced leaf structures. Okay, these are mostly for defense of a plant. And we can take the same example we took before for flattened stem. That flattened stem did all the photosynthesis. So the leaves took over and they became small reduced spiny structures in order to produce defense for the plant. So Opuntia is an example for spines. Then food storage. As usual, one of the most important modifications that vegetative parts have is for food storage. Example, we will take onion, then we will have garlic. All these have leaves which are modified to become thick, fleshy, and juicy in order to store food for the plant. Okay. Then one last special mention for the kind of modification in leaves is in insectivorous plants. In insectivorous, we have leaves that are either pitcher shaped. So we have pitcher plant with leaves modified like a pitcher or a pot. Okay. Then we have Venus flytrap. And this one has two flaps with teeth at the border. Both of them are modified in such a way to capture insects. Okay, so that is why they are insectivorous plants. So rather than taking part mostly in uh, photosynthesis, they majorly take most nutrients from the insects that they eat. And one of the main modifications in insectivorous plants can be seen in leaves where pitcher plant and Venus flytrap have special modifications. Okay, so that is about insectivorous modification in leaf. So we've covered leaf, we've covered stem, and we have covered root in the beginning. And like I told you, these three are the first most important vegetative parts of the plant. So in the next video, we'll talk about reproductive parts of the plant, that is